Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Sunday, February 21st, and this is Life Matters. Come on, let's talk about it. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am Michele Irby Johnson. I am your host here on Life Matters with Michele. You know, this is the platform where we talk about what matters to you in the African American community. And I'm so excited about this time to share with you all. Don't forget to drop your questions and your comments, and that way I can field them to our very wonderful guest that I have with me on today, Miss Martina Parker. Say hello to the people.
Hello, people. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me, Michele.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we have Miss Martina Parker, and she's going to be discussing teen dating violence. This is something that we don't often talk about. I talk about it, you know, because I counsel and I teach about domestic violence. And so this is something that we don't talk about very often, but I'm going to introduce her formally, and we're going to jump right into our discussion because I believe it is a necessary discussion that we just do not broach like so many other subjects we don't broach in our community, but we're going to talk about this today. So Miss Martina Parker is a seasoned project management professional, currently providing consulting services on a myriad of mental health and related topics. For over 2 decades, she has provided direct support to federal program support staff in the areas of domestic violence, adolescent pregnancy prevention, community services programs, and housing and homeless initiatives. Vitally important. Armed with an education from the University of Maryland at College Park, she parlayed her degree and experience into a certification in conference management, event management, and federal procurement. With a passion for community service and a love of people and adolescents, she currently serves as board of director for Girls Speak, a nonprofit geared towards promoting self-enrichment for young ladies ages 11 to 24, utilizing life's lessons that will enable them to discover and appreciate themselves. Additionally, it will permit them to build with other ladies as they strive to live out loud and discover their voice using traditional and non-traditional design activities. Her motto is, look within an individual to find their personal beauty, for beauty exists in us all. I agree. Welcome, my sister. Welcome, my new friend in the world. And I'm so glad to have this conversation with you. You know, talking about domestic violence. I typically will, focus on this in October, which is Domestic Violence Month. But I'm so glad that we are breaking the mold and talking about teen dating violence today. So there's so much discussion about domestic violence, but not necessarily about teen dating violence. And so there's a disconnect between clinical definition and what the community of youth understands as violence. So if you can give us your simple explanation or definition, just lay it out for our viewers. What exactly is teen dating violence, and does it in fact differ from the other violence that we experience?
Absolutely. Yeah. The general term of domestic violence is housed in a group of individuals or a one-on-one interpersonal intimate partner violence. Whereas you can have teen dating violence and there's no intimacy involved at all. Or you can have teen violence in a dating form that is more of a verbal or aggressive type of communication style. And so what I tell youth is domestic violence and teen dating violence, they go hand in hand like a glove, but they're different fingers on the hand. Teen dating violence is anything that makes you feel perpetrated against someone that you have perpetrated or that you perpetrate against, or someone perpetrates against you, that makes you feel violent, insecure, aggressive, or reactionary. Those things, if it evokes that type of emotion and you are in a teen dating relationship, that is the lead in to violence. And it doesn't just have to be, I'm putting my hands on you, because that's the first thing you hear oftentimes when you're talking with the youth. The young man or the young lady will say, well, I didn't put my hands on her, or I didn't put my hands on him. It's not about your hands. It's an aggressive communication style that leads to a feeling of insecurity. And that's where we want to get at the heart of that, so that we don't perpetuate that in our adult relationships, and especially in our parent relationships.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm glad that you differentiated between it, because when, oftentimes when you tell somebody you've been in a domestic violence relationship, and this is for the adults, but I'm glad that you said the same thing for the teens, that the physical abuse is not the first thing that happens. They have to get you with all of the what we call coercive control things, the manipulation, the isolation, the intimidation, all of those fear and scare tactics. Those things start first to break you down, and then at some point, not always, but at some point, the physical will be introduced. But I'm glad that you said that, because you do hear a lot of youth saying, well, he didn't put his hands on me, he loves me, he's just being this or he's just being that. And so I'm glad that you addressed it that way. You let them know that teen dating violence, just like adult violence, domestic violence, is not just physical. So explain the types, because I'll talk it out, but I want you to do it as my guest. Mm-hmm. Explain the types of violence that youth see. Do they parallel with what we see? Explain some of those things to us.
I think they are more, the teens there is more rooted in what they hear culturally, and specifically in music and movies and songs. It's a underlying current of control. And when they hear those controlling mechanisms, they don't realize that is what the precursors is to escalation to violence. For example, I always give them the example of the first time you smoke weed, no one knows you're going to become a crack addict. But there are certain type of entryway behaviors that could lead and escalate if you don't control them early on. Just because you are a verbally abusive person doesn't mean you're going to become a physically abusive person. But you want to be clear that type of behavior can indeed escalate. So I tell them to look for controlling behaviors on social media. So social media is a big thing with the young people. They communicate so much through that medium that it controls their perception of reality. And it's not necessarily the reality, it's the perception of a reality. So if the perception is she liked his picture, so she must like him, it's a perception. It may not be she even knows him. She may know nothing about him, but it can lead to a controlling behavior where I find 12 and 13-year-olds actually monitoring each other's phones. They're looking at each other's social media profiles. They're going through who the person is liking and friending on Instagram or TikTok. They're looking at what the videos are. It's a controlling behavior. Controlling behavior leads to combative conversations. Combative conversation leads to aggressive behaviors. Aggressive behaviors can definitely lead to violence. So you want to just check in on that. So a lot of the areas that I talk to them about is the need to control. Right. It starts there, and not needing to control. It's a desire to know what your mate is doing, but the need to control is where it is problematic.
Yes. So go back through those steps: controlling, conversation. Go back through those, just so we're clear.
Okay. So when it starts off with a desire to know. So I just start, I want to know. And then once you know, it then becomes a behavior of needing to control. So now that I know what's going on social media, I want to control it. I'm telling you who you can like, who you can friend, who videos you can watch. Once I start to control, then we're going to have a dialogue about it, because the person by nature is going to rebel. There's very few of us in the world where someone tries to control us. We don't like that. Even babies. I mean, you could try it. Put your baby in the crib. They will crawl out. You know, they don't like being controlled. So it will lead to a conversation. Those conversations normally become combative. In a combative conversation, it's a power of wills. And any conversation you have where you're going to extend your will on another person, once conversation no longer will do, it will escalate. And some of the behaviors that individuals don't even know that are violent in the teen community is smushing. Oh, I just smushed him. Or I just bumped her, or I just pushed her out the car. Things that they don't think are violent. These things are they're escalating behaviors, and they will lead to violence if they're not checked accordingly. And sometimes they don't even realize that those behaviors are aggressive because it's systemic. They have seen it in their rap music, in their genre of television shows that they watch. They've seen it in their own homes and communities. So you just have to constantly have them have that internal dialogue with themselves. Is why am I doing and saying what I'm doing? What is the outcome that I would like? And then is this the behavior that will get me to the end goal?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the questions from our audience says, well, how do teens know what is aggression and what is joking between boyfriend and girlfriend? And that is a good question, because, you know, we can start out playfully, and so it becomes the norm. Then somewhere down the line, when you get into those need to know and all of that, those controlling factors, what we deem as he's being playful turns into something serious on the side of the aggressor. So how do they differentiate between when it shifts from being jokey, you know, playful, to being more serious or controlled?
Oh, great. I often suggest that there are certain things that are deemed joking that are never joking, and they just should be behaviors that are never insinuated. Play wrestling, throwing each other around. These aren't ways to play with the opposite sex, or even in the same sex type of relationships. These aren't ways to play because they can escalate so quickly. So I often advise them, do not do anything or say anything to the other person that you wouldn't want someone else that you love to hear you say or do. So if you won't want your mother to hear you call her a stank bee, don't call her a stank bee. If you don't want your dad to hear you call him a punk, don't call him a punk. You know, the things, you have to have a meter of morality that you're going to live by, whether or not it's your friends or family or anyone else living by it. You set those rules internally. They do not change by the person. I've heard so many young people say, I only did that in that relationship. And that's because you allowed your moral compass to change according to who you're with. And that's not how you should ever govern yourself. How you treat a person in any relationship should be the same. What's changing is the person, but you should not change your behaviors. So playful behaviors like play fighting, smushing, sending out very vulgar texts, explicit videos, those are not games. And so right off the bat, they should just be ruled out as these are a no-go for us. We just don't do those type of things. And that way there isn't any miscrewing what occurred, because we just don't do them. We don't play like that. There are certain behaviors that are not playful behaviors. And as our teens move from adolescence to adulthood, we need to instill that in them so that at 24, 25, they're not learning that's no way to play. They actually have learned that in their earlier years.
Absolutely. And you said something earlier in your introduction. Oftentimes, abusers are emulating what they watched, what they saw in their own home. For instance, I was an abused wife 24 years ago. I escaped. But I found out in the interim through the courts and all of those different things that my abusive husband at the time actually saw his mother getting beat almost every day. And so it's a learned behavior. You don't grow up aggressive. You don't grow up You don't fall into that behavior. It had to have been something that was poured into your spirit, if I can say it that way, through
Yes.
your eye gate, through your ear gate, again, like you said, through movies and TV and all of those different things. And so how do we, help our teenagers to understand what the red flags are? Because like we said, to them it's become so normalized, and they've become desensitized because they see it on TV, they see it in the videos, they see it around them. What is your suggestion for helping these young people? And I don't want to say young girls, because girls now are the aggressors.
Yes. Yes,
um,
ma'am.
yeah, they are terrible sometimes. But
Mm-hmm.
how do we get them to understand what to look for? Just because he's cute, just because she's shapely, what are some of the red flags that they need to look for in their young minds? Because their dendrites haven't connected, and so they don't think a certain
Mm-hmm.
way. They're not ready up here. Give us some red flags that they should be looking for.
Okay, the first thing I tell them is we are all born with, even though we haven't obtained emotional maturity, we're born with feelings. And
Yeah.
anything that makes you feel ill, that is your first red flag. There's never, even if it's something that you can't quite put your hand on, like a microaggression and racism, you don't quite know why it offends you, but you know it offends you. And that is the first step, to identify, that didn't make me feel good. That didn't make me feel secured. That didn't make me feel loved. That didn't make me feel appreciated. It didn't make me feel included. If it didn't make me feel any of those things that are positive, even if I'm not sure why it felt negative, I need to first own that that is something that I felt. And then secondly, having a broad spectrum of individuals available to your youth is so important. It used to be, it takes a village to raise a child. It absolutely does. The more expanded a parent or caregiver of any youth can make their group of resources available to them, the more broad you can make that, the better. The more people at church that they feel comfortable talking to, or small groups that they participate in, or their school counselor, that special teacher that they just love, the neighbor next door that they just have bonded to. It is vital to expand their vocabulary of people that they can reach out to for multiple reasons. One, it gives them different perspective. And as a young person, perspective is vital, because having a broader perspective helps us to make a better decision. It makes us more equipped to look differently. If all I know and all I see is this, I'm very limited in how I react. But my mom could be saying it's right. My dad could be saying it's right. My brothers and sisters, everything I see around me could be saying it's right. But I go to this group every week, and we talk about this in group, and they're saying it's not right. And I participate in this club, and this club is saying that it's not right. It gives them more information. The more information that's available to them, and the more outlet that they have to actually speak on their feelings. Feelings is the most important thing with a youth. We have so many teens that commit suicide because they have nowhere to outlet their feelings. It's not about facts. It's not about actuality or real life. It's what they feel. And unfortunately, what adolescents feel is reality to them, and it needs to be addressed. So giving them as many safe spaces as possible to deal with how they feel, and being okay with it. Something that may be okay with your girlfriend that is fine in their relationship, you didn't like it in yours. And having a safe space outside of your group or your nucleus cell to discuss that with, that empowers them to make different types of decisions.
And I think that's very key when you said what they feel is their reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we as adults, we are guilty of, I don't want to say, we minimize.
Yes.
We minimize. When they say they feel something, or when they say they're upset, we're like, you need to get over it, or whatever our response is. Yeah. And it makes them feel, again, that nobody cares. It makes them feel that their feelings are not valid. And because they feel like that, then they clam up, they close themselves down. And then you have, like you said, suicidal ideologies, cutting, bulimia, anorexia, and it manifests itself in all of these different ways, all of these mental challenges that, somehow pop up. And as a result of them not knowing how to express, and when they do express, we cut them off, tell them go sit down, get ready for dinner, or we tell them go do your homework, we tell them we need some me time, or whatever the case may be, and we don't give them that space to validate where they are, with who they are, and what they're dealing with. So I'm so glad that you said that, because a lot of parents, particularly dealing with stress of life, now in this pandemic, you're trying to teach them, you're trying to work, you're trying to do all of these different things. And so in your stress as a parent, you're dismissive. And I think that is detrimental to the space where our teenagers are. And so they have no place to go except to those people who don't treat them well, because at least they're available, right?
Yes. And also feeling rejected by your feelings of how I feel about something. When a person rejects you, it actually makes you feel, it diminishes your worth. That's just the truth. The more you are rejected for how you feel and how you think, right or wrong, you start to feel devalued. And once you start to feel devalued, you will allow someone to devalue you. I mean, that's the connection. So we always say hurt people. Well, devalue people attract people who will devalue them. So in many relationships, you find that a person with severely broken self-esteem, even may have some borderline personality disorder, you will find they attract abusers. They will just attract them, because that type of person, the groundwork is already laid for them to come in and do whatever they know how to do. And so you will find hurt people normally re-traumatize each other over and over and over again. And it's good to have a safe space for youth to go to where they can talk about the traumas of life. Even adults, we suppress so much that normally we have these, my mother used to say, at 40, the world gonna look different. You're gonna learn so much at 40. And God knows, as soon as I turned 40, the world just looks so different. It's almost like you need a catharsis moment, that coming to Jesus moment where you learn it. Our youth have to be given that same forum. They just need it more. They need it weekly, daily. Their lives change so much, so quickly. There was a young lady in one of the groups that Sharon and I run on Girls Speak. I hadn't seen her in a year because of the pandemic. So I dropped by her house to drop her a little gift. She is like 3 inches taller and 50 pounds bigger. I'm like, their lives change so drastically in such a small amount of time. We as mentors, teachers, professionals, therapists, ministers, clergy, parents, caregivers, extended family, we can't afford to ignore. We can't afford not to check in daily, let alone weekly, monthly, and yearly. We have to make it part of the daily conversation to hear more from them and less from us. The more we listen, the more we will learn and understand exactly how they are processing certain things. And a lot of things that we don't deem as trauma has been very traumatic to a lot of these young people, and they carry it into their next relationships. And then it boils over, and now I'm violent. I didn't mean to push her as hard, but a year's worth of pent up aggression came out, and the little push I meant to do like this sent her flying through a door. And so we have to stay on top of the feelings that our youth experience, and not allow them to grow up in a society where we tell them they're not valued and that they must suppress. Those are things, especially in the African-American community, we have to let go. That whole be a man, we got to let that go. That whole be strong Black woman, we got to let that go. And we have to interpret what they're saying as the reality that they're facing and help them work through it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, going back to validating what they're feeling. Now, when you say, their lives change, and it is so true, because they can be one way at 8 o'clock in the morning, another way by 12 noon, and by 5 o'clock, they hate your guts. And you don't know what happened in that span of 9 hours. You're like, what in the world happened to my baby? And we were just, talking about the weekend or what have you. And a lot of their emotions and, their grounding, if you will, comes from people's opinions, comes from what people are saying out in the world about what's beautiful, what's not. You're too heavy, you're too skinny, you're too dark, you're too light. And so all of that on top of everything else makes them feel like they don't measure up. And so they're looking for some place soft to land, even if it has prickles like a cactus. It's at least a place that's going to pay them attention. And so they will gravitate, like you said, they'll gravitate to hurtful things because at least somebody's listening.
Yes, they sure will. And if you want to see a child go the opposite way, start talking about the thing that they find safe. If you're saying he's no good for you, she's no good for you, but they have already found solace in that person, you're going to push them. You're going to push them as hard as you can, as fast as they can run to the source that you don't want. We have to learn how to become that source and then be okay. I'm a product of older parents. My father and my mother were in their 40s when I was born. They were done raising children. They were smart enough to know they were done. And so they gave me a broad range of individuals to go to that helped me grow up into the person that I needed to be. They knew they didn't want to learn anything about when I was growing up. It was go-go and all of that. They didn't want to learn nothing about that. And so they were fine as parents saying, this is where you go for this resource. This is the individual that I trust for you to do this. When it was time to do overnight trips with the school or sexual education or human sexuality when I was in the 12th grade, and now you're going to learn about homosexuality and everything else. It was very important for them to say, this is the sister I trust, because my sisters and brothers are almost 20 years older than me. So they were like, this is the sister I trust you to talk to about that. This is the sister I trust with your education. This is the brother I trust to take you on dates. You have to open up that realm. And if you have a very small family or a small familiar circle, then look for those resources. Girls Speak happens to fill a large gap of those resources in Prince George's County because we are the group. I am the big auntie. I'm the cool aunt. I'm the cool sister. They can call me and talk to me, and they do. We literally, there's nothing off limits. And I find it very empowering that they ask me so much about my personal life. They want to know that you overcame something too. And oftentimes, once we become parents, we don't tell them about the struggle. The struggle stopped being real once we got grown. And that's not true. I tell them, hey, you struggle with self-esteem. Me too. You struggling in relationships. Guess what? Me too. I was married for 16 years. We all struggle through things. There's nothing wrong with having a valid exchange with our youth, not painting a picture that is so far outside the realm of attainability for them that they feel like failures. It's okay to tell your children you flunked out of school too, and you finished when you was an adult. It's okay to embrace that life happens, and that is normal. Normalizing a lot of the things that they experience, I think, is the key to helping them overcome the trauma and the ill feelings that will be residual if it's never addressed. So sometimes it make it normal. A couple of weeks ago, we have Think Out Loud Fridays. And so I invite anyone who wants to participate in our Think Out Loud Fridays to check out our Facebook page, Girls Speak Inc. on Facebook. And what we like to do during our Think Out Loud Fridays is we take a topic and we just blow it to bits. We talk about it from the emotional, the spiritual, and the physical aspects. And we allow the young ladies to actually speak as if they're speaking to their peer. I don't monitor language. I don't monitor slang. I want them to speak as comfortably as possible. And then I'm going to give you real life factual knowledge. And if I had that experience, I will tell you. So a few weeks ago, some of the young ladies were really struggling with how they look on Zoom. So all day long, they're on Zoom with school. They have to keep their cameras on. Parents aren't getting their kids' nails and hair done like they used to because you don't have to. You're in the house. They feel some kind of way about that. So we had a good discussion about it. And I had to tell, me too. While you're sitting here feeling inadequate, sitting on this Zoom, me too. Sometimes I'm sitting on Zoom looking pretty from the neck up, and on the bottom I got on pajamas. We all do it. So it's like, instead of saying, get over the feeling, embrace the feeling and prioritize it so that it doesn't become something that cripples you and overwhelms you. And oftentimes in teen dating relationships, they become overwhelmed. And they start to turn the feelings of overwhelmness into connection. Once they turn those feelings of overwhelmness into connection, they start to become codependent. And once you have a codependent relationship, it is very, very difficult to break. And a codependent relationship just doesn't exist in trauma-filled relationships or struggle love, as the young people say. You can become codependent in a relationship because of youth. I met my husband when we was 4 years old. I was codependent. And so you have to be very careful not to allow yourself to just be overwhelmed. And the more they talk and the more they express and share amongst themselves across age groups, across socioeconomic platforms, across family systems. You may be raised by two moms. You may be raised by just your dad. Once you just neutralize that and bring all of the youth together, they see a whole different perspective. And then they wind up realizing they could have relationships outside of their circles and that they can be very comfortable doing so.
And that is okay. I love this dialogue. There was something that you said. I think I lost it, but I hope I can get it back. But I love the fact that you give them space to be authentically them. Because oftentimes we try to shield them, we try to make them morph into us. And as mentors, ministers, pastors, whatever the case we may be in terms of their expanded village, I think it's important that we do share and be transparent, because nobody wants a mentor who can't be touched. I'm a pastor, but I'm gonna put this out there. The Bible says that Jesus was, touched by our infirmities, meaning even though he didn't sin, he understood, because he was God in flesh. He had to come and see what it felt like to cry, to be betrayed, to be this, to be that. And if we don't let people see our infirmities, if we don't let people see where we've been scarred or what have you, they can't lean into us because they feel like you've never done anything wrong. So I'm glad that you brought that to light. And I think it's vitally important that we as adults, when we're sitting in that space calling ourselves listening, that we also share, because they have to know that you live in the real world just like they do, that you cry, you hurt, you bleed, all of these various things. And so it's vitally important that we don't shield our past or even our present, if that be the case, so that they can see that they're talking to a real person and not somebody who's made up. When I'm not on camera, I don't have on makeup. Yes, I have my pajamas on the bottom, and so this is not who I am 24/7. And so I need you to see what I look like without foundation. I need you to see what I look like without makeup, and it's okay. And you can be loved without, 3 layers of foundation and powder and, things to make your nose slim and your cheekbones look like all this contouring. You don't have to do that. Who told you needed that? And so I'm so glad that you said that. What is the age group? What have you found? I mean, I have my own thoughts, but what have you found to be the age group that falls prey mainly to teen dating violence? I know we say teen, but I'm feeling that there's some tweens and some before tweens that may fall into this category as well. Am I correct?
Correct. Statistically, starting around age 11, they have their first relationship, whether that's I'm just at school, we eat lunch together and we ride the bus together. But by 11, they've had their first relationship with either the same sex or the opposite sex. And during that time is where they start to develop their relationship self-esteem, how you feel in that relationship with someone. And the recovery phase is the most important, the exit strategy. If they do not know how to exit, because they've never seen it done, if they don't know how to exit, normally it's hurtful.
Yeah.
They wind up doing something to the other person. I don't know how to break up. Like, I remember somebody had to teach me how to exit my marriage. I didn't know how to exit, how to be a divorcee. Someone had to teach me so that we could still be friends. We could still settle our business endeavors. We could be fair to each other in our settlements. How do we go? How do we exit properly? Nobody really teaches us that. We just learn to break up with folks and we move on. So we spend time talking about how to enter and exit relationships. And then during that same time of how to enter and exit relationships, what I find is that I love bringing together my tweeners, my 11 to 14s, with my 16s and up, because the 11 to 14s have a clear perspective that has not been tainted by a whole lot of puberty yet. They've already experienced some puberty and some hormones, some estrogen is flowing, but it hasn't been really tainted the way it does by 16. By 16, I'm a woman. I'm grown by 16. But at 11 to 14, they are so open. They're very direct of what you will and will not say to them, how you will and will not treat me. They still have a very clear perspective of what they want out of the relationship. By the time they're 16, though, hormones have taken over. And I tell parents, if you really think that little boy that you have that's eating you out of house and home is not going through a great spurt of hormone, some of the things that they're experiencing is uncontrollable. It is literally hormonal. So if you think that you can police your child out of hormones, you can't. No. If you can teach them out of hormones, you can't. There ain't enough doors you can lock. If hormones are involved, you just can't do it. But what you can do is empower them to discuss what they're going through and feel confident in it. Once I feel comfortable, then it's not necessarily such an experimental act. If I've had those conversations with my dad and he done told me, yeah, man, this is what you're going to go through, this life. This is how it is. And I went through it. Your granddaddy went through it. Your uncles went through it. And let's just have a conclave. Let's all, us guys together and talk about it. It allows them to feel that it is more normal. And I can't stress enough, especially in today's social climate, we're going to have to normalize some things.
Yeah.
Because once something becomes part of our normal life, it's less traumatic to someone that is experiencing it. So it's important for girls to hear their moms say things like, okay, I don't feel that great today either. My makeup off too. It's okay. Instead of just saying, you're too young to be concerned with that. If she said it, she's concerned.
Yes.
So that means there's no too be young. I have to talk to you. You may have to couch the discussions where it's age appropriate. Maybe at 11, it's a different conversation that you have at 16, that you have at 19, that you'll have at 21. They're different escalating conversations. But once the child has made it something that you have heard, your job then is to act on it, not to ignore it or brush it aside.
Absolutely, because like you stated, people only say how they feel. And again, I got to go Bible again. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Doesn't it?
What are they feeling? It's coming out of their mouth. So again, we cannot minimize. We cannot, ignore. We can't push to the side. If your child comes to you one day and says something off the cuff, your antenna should go up. It shouldn't be one of those, you tripping. What are you doing? What have you? Pay attention. Pay attention, because the fact that you're ignoring what they're trying to tell you is going to open the door to somebody who does not need to help them, and then they fall into a dangerous situation. And so I counsel people on different levels, but when I deal with the women and I make them, backtrack to different parts of their lives, a lot of them will say something that, I didn't have anyone to talk to, or my parents ignored me. And it was almost like a cry for help, but their parents were so busy, so engaged doing their life, doing them, that they completely negated the fact that their child was crying, however it looked, whether it was aggression, whether it was missing school, whether it was not doing their hair or not taking a bath. That is something that you need to pay attention to. Why are you not bathing? There's a reason that you're not bathing on a regular basis. It's not that you've not been taught it. Something has shifted in your life that has caused you not to want to bathe. So how, Martina, do we shift the narrative, if I can say this, in the minds of our teens? Like you said, perspective. How do we begin to shift the narrative so that they start to believe something different, or they start to nullify what they've seen and or heard in the past, that it makes it easy for them to fall into, a teen dating violence situation?
Exposure. I cannot scream enough that your child has got to be exposed to different type of people, different races, different socioeconomic, different career paths. They have got to be exposed. in having them have such a broad range of people to seek, they will seek someone.
Yeah.
And so you will, if you only give them one person to seek, they may not seek anyone. If you give them 15 people to seek, they may seek one. So you want to expose them as much as possible. And quite frankly, it's sometimes because parents don't want to open their relationship. They don't want to expose themselves. Absolutely. They don't want to join a group. They don't want to be active in a church. They don't want to go seek counseling on their own. So because they're closed, they close their children's worlds. And I'm like, you have to open your world, and your child has to see that that's cool. And then once you open your world, they will be more than willing to open theirs. There is nothing, and it has nothing to do with what the child. We've had all kinds. We've had girls from girl homes and girl groups. We've had kids from the foster care system. We've had affluent children in the African American community that's raised in, upwards of 6-figure incomes. We've had all kinds of girls. There's a common denominator. Yeah. We're all girls. We all feel. There's a common denominator in our male counterpart group that we collaborate with, Jacob's Ladder. They're all men. They're all boys. These are things that we can all agree on. And once we can agree on that, sexuality, money, economic status, none of that stuff will matter. Once we can agree on the basis of things and giving your children as much exposure as possible. I grew up in one of those homes where, you was going to join some clubs. You was going to be in some stuff. Yeah. And I think your parents should really encourage that. And a lot of times, finances are a deterrent, but there are lots and lots of free groups, some faith-based, some not, that you can find that will be happy to mentor your children. There's mentoring now online. They don't even have to leave their home. They can mentor online, like via Zoom or whatever. They can just have text conversations. There's exchange of daily affirmations that they can quote for themselves 5 times a day that will just help strengthen their inner core, helping them change that dialogue that they run in their own head. Mm-hmm. The easiest way to change the dialogue is to give them new things that they hear. Change what they're hearing. Change, like you said, their ear gate, their eye gate. Change what they're hearing, change what they're seeing, you will get a changed child. And the same as an adult. If you are in a relationship, I worked for many years with women who were in domestic violence relationships, and oftentimes they couldn't see past that situation because they hadn't had their eye gate open. They hadn't had their ear gate open to know that there is something different. Once they are exposed to a resource that can help them, it helps them make a different decision. If I can't get out of this situation because I have no job, and then I give you a job, it makes you make a different, well, maybe I can get out because now I have a resource. So we have to learn to open up those resources to our youth so that when they become adults and get in those same situations, they can do it. I even have a pregnancy protocol. The likelihood that a young lady will get pregnant before high school, 1 in 5 are pregnant before they exit high school. So you may say it's not my child. It may not be your child, but it may be your child's best friend. Yeah. You should have those resources available to you. There should be a pregnancy protocol. There should be a teen rape protocol. If a child comes to you and say, hey, I was attacked, you should have a protocol. Okay, first parent, then police, then keep evidence. It should be some kind of protocol, and we all should be thinking of what our protocols would be if we're exposed to being put in a position where we have to bring aid to someone who's going through something traumatic. And teen dating violence, I've seen some very, very severe cases. I've seen cases where individuals were convicted for 20 years as an adult while they still were a minor. So there's some serious things that can happen. Accidents do happen. I just meant to scare her with the gun, but it went off. It's the same sentence. Yeah. The law doesn't say because you didn't intend for the gun to go off that it's a difference. Once you've drawn the gun, it's attempted. And so those are the type of things we need to start exposing our youth to, really teaching them that there are escalating behaviors that could lead to poor outcomes. So they just need to be very mindful of what they're saying and doing. I'm angry with him. So I sent him a very nasty text and wished him to die. And then he killed himself. The parents want me tried. The parents want me tried because my son or daughter wouldn't have killed themselves had you not sent them that nasty bullying text. And
Yeah.
so these are the type of communications, the aggressive communications that we need to nullify in our youth relationships so that they don't continue to escalate into situations that everyone is sad over later on.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I was pastoring a church in North Carolina, I used to have a group that I would run for the teenagers, the tweens, teens, or what have you. And one of our Saturdays that we met, I said, okay, I need you to bring to me the lyrics of one of your favorite songs. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What we did, and a lot of them had the same song. And I said, okay, well, let's take this particular person's
Break
song.
it down.
I said, let's break out the lyrics. And when we talked about the lyrics, I said, how does that apply to you? Or how does that make you feel without the music background, just reading it out loud? What this guy is saying, or what this lady is saying about herself, or what she's calling herself. How does that make you feel? And it was such an aha moment for them because they were like, I didn't realize she was saying that. I just like the beat.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you have to come outside of the beat and hear the message that is subliminally going into your spirit, that is shifting the conversation in your head, that is shifting the way that you behave, that is shifting how you're allowing people to treat you or how you treat other people. So I think it's incumbent upon us to have those conversations. And I'm so glad that you comb through these things with these girls. You're not just sitting there and letting them just talk about anything, and you're not adding to the conversation. I would love to be a fly on the wall. I would love to come and visit. But
we would love for you to join. We actually open, we try to have events. Well, the Think Out Loud Fridays are normally geared towards our population group only, but we do have events that we open up to the public, and we're going to be having one, Michele, next Friday on my birthday. We'll be having one at 7 p.m. where we're going to be talking about teen dating violence too, and you and all the adults are welcome to come here and participate. We have a lot of young influencers and leaders in the community that's going to be talking about their own personal stories with teen dating violence, how they overcame, and how you can be a survivor too. So it's just a wonderful day. I'm looking forward to celebrating my birthday with all of the youth. It makes me feel youthful.
Amen. I think I saw the flyer because I think my husband did it. So
he did. He's so talented. He sure did.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as we're our time is running because this is such a good, rich conversation. I want to talk about two different things. How can we help our teenagers to understand what a healthy relationship looks like? Paint the picture. Give us broad strokes. What does it look like, and what does it not look like? Well, we know the violent part, but help our babies. And I'll call them babies. My son is 27. He'll be 28. He's still my baby. Help our babies understand what a healthy relationship can look like.
Well, first, I'm going to give them a very valuable resource. This is a federally funded grantee that has been phenomenal in changing the narrative and shifting the educational level of youth nationwide, not just here, but not just in the continental U.S., but in territories as well. And so the website is loveisrespect.org. Loveisrespect.org is a very young, user-friendly tool that they can go to that will give them all kinds of examples of what a healthy relationship is and what isn't. They have on their website something called the relationship spectrum that will help them understand what healthy, unhealthy, and what an abusive relationship is. And once we're in an unhealthy relationship, we really need to be moving back towards healthy, not towards abusive. But in broad strokes, a healthy relationship is one where you feel yourself while communicating. You are not changing your verbiage. You're not changing how you articulate your thoughts. You are comfortable expressing yourself the way you normally would without any intervention. A healthy relationship is respectful, one where you feel empowered to give respect and to gain respect. A healthy relationship promotes trust. So if I'm in a relationship, I should be promoting trust of my partner, and they should be promoting trust in me, not taking control so that I will trust, but promoting you to be your best person in the relationship so that you are trustworthy. And so there's a difference between having someone where you have to control them in order to trust them and someone that you are empowering to be trustworthy. You should be honest in a healthy relationship. A healthy relationship should not be predicated on what you wear or if you're having sex with the person. It should be just about how honest you are in the relationship. You should feel your partners equal. It doesn't matter if they're a 4.0 student and you're barely making it with a 2.0. You should feel like you are their equal. There should never be a time where they make you feel less than or beneath them. You both should be promoting a partnership where you feel that you are equal. You should enjoy spending time away from each other. That is important in a healthy relationship. If you got to be on her or him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you got to know where they're doing, what they're doing. You're checking their phone. I hate the iPhone because the iPhone lets you check a person. If you can get into their Apple ID, you can know where they've been on any app. You'll know too much about them. And so if you need that, if you can't be without the person, that's not love. And it's definitely not healthy. You should enjoy the time that you spend separate from the person and enjoy the time that you spend with them, looking forward to when you will spend more time with them. You should be able to make mutually exclusive decisions.
Yes.
We're both going to college. We do not have to go to the same college. I may be going to the West Coast, you may be going to the East Coast, and we both will be happy that we can make exclusive decisions. We do not have to live in each other's pocket. You often hear, oh, well, he don't like me to wear that, or she don't want me with that group. You should be able to make independent decisions about your life in a healthy relationship. There's a difference between the person wanting what's best for you and giving their opinion towards that and just being a person that wants to control who you talk to and where you go. And so you should be looking for the partner that will allow you to make an independent decision. And then lastly, you should be looking for the partner that respects your economic and financial position. And this is very important in the teen relationships. I don't even know if I want to tell my, well, I look good. I tell my age. I'm 48 years old. And at 48, I should be worried about, my significant other buying me expensive things. At 14, you should not. You should be worried about your own financial economic position, and they should be worried about theirs. And then later on in life, y'all can worry about all of that together. But I've seen young ladies so often before he could get his first paycheck. Well, I got to get my hair done. I got to get my nails done. They're already manipulating and managing each other's finances. And that is a no-no in a healthy relationship. It's a no-no even in some marriages. It's a no-no to constantly be in charge of someone else's finances. We can have a togetherness where we combine our finances, and now it's a us and a we, but you can't earn all the money as a young person, and then I use it all. And I see that so often where these young men really feel like they have to work because their girlfriend need her hair done for prom. She has parents. That's her parents' job.
I was going to say she has parents.
Yes. And so we have to really learn to empower our kids to be cool being kids. And ultimately, that's the end game. Can you just enjoy your youth, enjoy this time of development and exploration into who you will become as your adult self, and minimizing as many of the adult worries that lay on their shoulders as we can. And the way we can do that is letting them share the things that they worry about, helping them prioritize them, and then helping them through that situation so that they can be unburdened.
Absolutely. This has been so rich. Oh, I hate that the time goes by so quickly. I mean,
it does.
But it's just amazing because you said a lot of good things in there. And I wish, I need to get somebody on the show to talk about this, that when you get into those situations where girls need to have their hair done, need to get their nails done, and somebody's all of a sudden, she used to be a okay dresser or a shabby dresser, and now all of a sudden she has the latest and the greatest or something, that is a telltale sign of trafficking. So you ladies, teachers, principals, school counselors, if you see young ladies starting to dress better than they ever dressed, and their economical, the social economical status, and now all of a sudden they're wearing the latest and the greatest, and they got the $800 bundle on their head or whatever, that is a telltale sign of someone who's being trafficked and being groomed to be trafficked. So that's a whole nother discussion.
And it's a very vital one in the African American community. We have systemically, as a group, categorize a young lady's sexuality as she's being fast, so she's a fast tail. And what we are seeing now is that there are predators in our own communities. Our uncles, fathers, and people are predators, and they are taking these young ladies and putting them into a life of sexuality that they did not sign up for just because they wanted a new bundle.
Absolutely, absolutely. But again, we can get on for that one for another one. But I just want to thank you, my dear sister. Thank you for coming on. This is Miss Martina Parker. Amazing. Thank you for sharing with us. Time does not allow for us to dig deeper. I wanted to talk about scars and safety plans and all of that. We can bring you on at another time and we can go deeper. But ladies and gentlemen, please listen to your children. Listen to what they say out loud. Listen to what they say with their body language. Listen what they say in their silence. Don't be dismissive. Our babies are out here in the midst of dating violence situations, controlling and aggressive situations, because we've not given them the time. We've not taken the time to really hear their heart on how they feel, whether we agree with it or not. We've got to provide a safe space for our teens so they don't find themselves in teen dating violence situations. I want to thank you once again, my beautiful sister. Such a joy for coming on the show.
Thank you.
For those of you who, yes, baby, for those of you who would like to watch the playback, it will be on YouTube at Life Matters with Michele TV Official. That is Life Matters with with Michele TV Official. That's YouTube. Or you can also listen to it on Fridays at 5 o'clock. If you're driving and you don't have time to turn on your computer or what have you, you can listen to the show every Friday at 5 o'clock on www.sensationalsoundsradio.net. We would love to have you come and join us. Listen in, and then again, you can watch the replay on YouTube at Life Matters with Michele TV Official. Thank you again, my beautiful sister, for coming on. I love you. We became quick buds.
Yes.
Miss Martina Parker. We're gonna talk offline, so don't hang up.
Okay.
So if you'd like to be a guest on the show, I'm putting this out here. I'm looking for bold, beautiful, bald women to talk about our situation here. So if you know anybody, please have her reach out to me. I am booking. I only have one date left in July, and I'm booking for August. So if you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email me at Michele. That's Michele at what is my email address? Lord have mercy. Michele at IAM-MIJ.com. So you can be a guest on the show. We'll be in season 3 starting in July, but I'm looking for guests. So if that's you, please reach out to me to be a guest on the show. Thank you again, my beautiful sister Martina, for joining me today on Life Matters. It has been quite a joy and adventure, and I would love to have you back, and we can further this discussion at a later date. So give me another date. We can talk about it, but I'm so excited. So thank you, everybody. Once again, I am your host, Michele Irby Johnson, and this is Life Matters, where we talk about what matters to you, and our community. Thank you so much, and do have a great day. Bye-bye.